Hello! Welcome to what is for me a holiday week. It is Monday and Thanksgiving is coming on Thursday, so I'm very excited. We are working today from the Forks and Knives Flavor Cookbook, Forks Over Knives, and we are making the Peruvian lima bean soup, which I'm super excited about. We are working with something called sofrito, which we're gonna make from scratch today. There's also lime juice, cumin, oregano, and mint. So many exciting flavors. I cannot wait. Plus we're using butter beans, which is also a big favorite. So I'm doing 2 batches again today, 1 double batch and 1 single batch. So I have here 8 cloves of garlic, 1.5 onions, and 2 peppers, a yellow and an orange. The recipe calls for yellow peppers, but alas, yellow and orange it is. So there's also a full cup of water in here, and we're going to puree this into a smooth paste, and that's going to be the sofrito. So I have a high-speed blender here, so I am not going all the way to its top. It would really give me like a smoothie. So here is 1 batch, and I'm going to go over here and pour it into my larger, which is already hot, as you can see. I'm even going to turn that down. And we're going to make our second batch. Woo, burning the eyes. Okay. So then over here again, we're going to get our second batch ready. So I have 4 garlic cloves. And when you're working with an onion, you don't want to stick the whole thing in. So just give it a rough chop. Nothing too intense, but just so that the blender's not handling a whole thing. Not that this one couldn't handle it, but it wouldn't necessarily give you the best consistency. You want to kind of move it around differently. Same with my peppers. I just give them a thicker, rough chop. So those go in. They go in with a 1/2 cup of water because this is the single batch. And we're going to go again. Are you ready? I love it. I love that we're making sofrito. Here we go. Okay. Oops. So this one's going to go into, and I'll actually show you, into the smaller pot. And I'm just going to give this a quick rinse because some people complain that their blenders end up taking on that flavor. It won't take on the flavor if you're cleaning as you go. So I'm just going to immediately rinse it out. And then I'll be able to move on, not being worried that my smoothie is going to taste like intense garlic and onion. Though if you followed our summer experience, you'll know I did create a very intense experience with that. So these are both boiling. And what we're going to do right away is add in carrot. So this calls for a 1/2 cup of carrot. As you know, I never do anything halfway. So the thing about this carrot, though, is it's meant to be diced. And I just wanted to leave 1 out to give us a sense of what it looks like to dice a carrot. It's really making carrot sticks and then cutting them into smaller pieces. And if you're like me, that just sounds overwhelming, which is why I wanted to save 1 out to show you it's not that big of a deal. So at the top, I'll make 3 incisions the long way instead of 2. I'm going to gather them all together and then send it through all of them. So it goes a lot faster, and the original recipe calls for 1 carrot, but if you've been watching me, you know I always add extra veggies because why not? Big families, add a few extra carrots. Carrots are cheap, and you can get a really good thing going. So here we've got our carrots mixed in now. Mix them in on this side as well. So that is gonna, oh, this house is gonna smell so good. I just cannot wait. But carrot takes a little bit of time to cook, which is why you want to get it in early. Also, you know, you were working with raw onion and garlic, even though they're pureed. So you do want to make sure that. And then now that these are starting to do their thing, I just want to make sure that they don't need extra water, that they don't start sticking to the bottom. If they do stick to the bottom, just a little extra water in the bottom of the pan. Here we have, I've added the salt ahead of time, cumin and oregano. So this one has 2 teaspoons each of cumin and oregano. This one has 1 teaspoon each, I think. Now I'm doubting myself. There we go. Add those in. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so amazing. I cannot wait. Mixing those around. And you really do want to keep an eye. So I feel like this one could use a little more water. So it's just a splash. It's probably like 1/8 of a cup of water, 2 tablespoons or something like that. But just to kind of keep it on the liquidy side, this is ultimately going to feel like a soup. We're going to serve it over potatoes. So I have potatoes already in the oven, ready to bake. They're prepped. Just a note on potatoes, you probably already know, but in case you don't, I once exploded potatoes in the oven because I had not put enough marks in them. So they often say to poke them with a fork, and it depends on your strength level, so I actually poke them with a steak knife because, you know, why go through the trouble of cleaning your oven if you don't have to? Okay, so we've added our carrot, we've added our spice, and that is meant to go for 10 minutes just to soften up that carrot. And so while we're waiting on that, I'm going to also get us started. So the zucchini is meant to be diced as well, and I'm doing kind of a larger dice here. And I just wanted to also show you what that looks like. Oh, while I'm at it, I made a mess of my blender for a second there, so let me just clean that up. Okay, so this is just the ends are cut off, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut it in half and flip it down on its flat side. And I'm going to give it 2 slices, both of them. And then all together, right there, just nice and even, I do a rocking motion all the way across the zucchini. So it's not that horrible. Now you could dice them slightly thinner. I just wouldn't. I feel like zucchini falls apart easy, and so I wouldn't want it any smaller, but, you know, do what makes you happy. Let us walk on over here. Make sure that these are doing well. Even this one. I'm going to give this one a little bit more water still. Possibly the burner was hotter, and so you just want to make sure that your carrots have something to work with there. It's going to be so good. And while we're continuing to wait on that, because once this part is done, the rest goes quite quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and move my zucchini into a bowl and out of the way. So later on, we're going to add some mint. And so I've gone ahead and de-stemmed my mint. De-stemming any herb is just a matter of holding the herb and then coming down. So not up with the way that the leaves would grow, but the other way. So I did that to just a bunch. I just bought a bunch of mint. And then here, the big thing is you don't want to cut your fingers. So I've got them in a nice bunch, and I'm going to hold them kind of tight. And then I'm just going to rock through. You need a reasonably sharp knife, but not horribly. Half of the mint is going to go in for the cooking for like 2 to 3 minutes. The other half is going to be a garnish if you want it later on. And there are certainly all kinds of schools of thought. You do want to be gentle with your herbs because they bruise easy, lose their flavor easy. But such an amazing smell. I was thinking about this when I was taking it off the stem. It just adds so much happiness to your life when you get these beautiful smells. Oh my gosh. Like, there's this app, 10% Happier. I don't have it. I've only heard about it. But I feel like, you know what makes you 10% happier? That. Smelling fresh herbs while you're cooking. 10% happier. It's just cooking. But it's so good. So that's going pretty well. While it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead now and add in my zucchini. So those are going to fly in and get incorporated. And soon we're going to add our vegetable stock as well. But not yet. We'll be able to prep it though, because now finally I'll have all of my measuring cups free. So those get coated with the sauce that has formed with the onion and garlic. This really comes together somewhat fast. Sometimes you'll have something that needs to boil for 40 minutes. This is like, 10 minutes and then 7 minutes. It's not very long at all, which is great. Nice and coated. Still feeling like I want a little more liquid in that one. And you'll notice in recipes they often add things like salt, lime juice, herbs at the end. There's a reason for that, right? That lime juice brightens the flavor at the very last second, but if you cooked it in, it's delicate. It wouldn't work the same. Same with herbs. Like, they're just, you'll get the flavor of them if you don't overcook them. So these are doing a great job. I'm going to turn that one up a bit. And then we'll just check on our recipe for a moment. So we're working on not having our puree stick. That's a very important thing. We've added our zucchini. And now we're prepping the stock, the butter beans. It does call for lima beans, but I love butter beans. The salt, half the mint, and that's going to go for 2 to 3 minutes, so just a really quick thing. And then you turn off the heat. So you're like basically done at this point, which is pretty darn exciting. It calls for a full 2 cups of stock. So I have 4 cups mostly prepped here. And then I'm going to grab 2 more cups while you stare at whatever's over there. So as you'll recall with me, I could make my own stock. I just don't. I do so much cooking. I would be constantly in the kitchen making something. And I don't really want to store it. I feel like I come from the Midwest. There's way more storage there than we have here. I could take over my husband's workshop and start storing food there, but So also, I've figured out canning. Canning takes a while. So you could freeze it. I think that's kind of the modern equivalent to canning. Just put it in the freezer and then use it within 3 months. So if you're really ambitious, go ahead and make your own stock. Vegetable stock, it's not that hard. It's like onions, carrots, celery, and various things in a pot. Let it boil for a while. Take out that stuff or blend it in, and then you've got this really flavorful stock. This I get at Costco. It's like a bouillon paste, and it's really like a teaspoon to a cup of water. As I often say, do what you can. Do what makes you happy. Maybe someday I'll be in a different space and be ready to make my own stock. I will say, at Thanksgiving when we do turkey bone broth, oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever. But I just don't have the energy, and you got to kind of know yourself that way. So we are letting these go. This one's getting a little thicker now that I turned it up, which is great. And I often will just grab a fork to see how my carrots or whatever is the thickest vegetable is coming along. So it's coming along really nicely. I was able to pierce it with a fork. That kind of gives you a sense. I'll go over here as well. Same thing here. I can pierce it. I can even tear it apart. So they're in really good shape. I'll just give them a couple more minutes to kind of really even out the inside feel. My zucchini looks good. I'm a really big advocate of not overcooking the zucchini. I love zucchini now. As a kid, I absolutely hated it. But what I found is a lot of people just cooked it down to a mush, and that's what made it so undesirable. So do what you can not to overcook it. When we add the beans, it's just a ton of beans. It's 2 cans of these butter beans or lima beans, and in my double batch 4 cans. So a lot of beans. That's your protein. And so hearty, right? So we're now into the colder months. I always wait to make these kinds of things. Like in the summer, I might do more with like wraps and bean burgers and really fun salads, things like that. But then come the summer months, lots of soups, like baking spaghetti. So as I made the December menu, right? The spaghetti squash is going to come with the tomato sauces and just hearty, warm your belly. It gets cold in these northern climates. So it doesn't take long for the food to really get a sense. Like we chat a little bit and then we check on this a little bit because it will actually continue to cook even after we're done here. So let me go ahead and add our water to both. Or if you were just, like if you had bought vegetable stock, just brothy vegetable stock, that would go in. I like estimate what 2 teaspoons is. I don't estimate carefully. I am sure I'm wrong. It doesn't bother me. So do what your conscience will allow. That, as it becomes warm, breaks right up into the broth. And because we added that, it stopped the boiling of our vegetables as well. But it'll quickly go right back up because everything in this pot is so warm already. So we'll add in our 2 cans of beans to this one. And our 4 cans of beans to this one, which seems like a lot, but it's really for multiple sittings. So big family, multiple sittings. So not nearly as much as it seems. Give those a turn. Looks so good. Okay, and then, so let me just go ahead and look and see what the actual amount of mint was supposed to be. 2 tablespoons of chopped mint. So I don't want to overdo it. And since it says finely chopped, let me let you see. I'm going to go ahead and just give it a little bit more. And just to say, like, you can't really hurt those beans by cooking them. They could go in, honestly, whenever. You're just kind of giving your pot, like you're giving your vegetables a chance to really cook before you put them in. But you can't really hurt the beans by cooking them more. They've already been canned. You also could make your own beans if you want to. It really involves soaking overnight and then turning them on in a crock pot throughout the day, and they're ready. So it doesn't take a lot of work. It's more like, you've got to keep that crock pot going. You got to think about all that. And so I've done it. I've done it just to see what it's like. And then I said, this is not the season. So, figure it out. Figure out what works for you. And don't be upset at yourself if you are like, oh, I can't manage all that. I can't bake the beans and make the stock. And for a while I tried to make the ketchup. And as it was, the kids were kind of grumpy about the ketchup. It had a slightly different consistency than their ketchup. But I was so excited about it because I was like, I know it's fresh and I know it came. What's in it and all that jazz. But it doesn't really matter. Okay. So this calls for 1 tablespoon of lime juice. So I already knew this one is mostly gone. So I already opened up a second lime juice. And luckily, I remembered I was at the grocery store and I was in line, but the whole family was there. And so they stayed in line and I went and got the extra. So, okay, there is our lime juice. Let's see. I don't know which one. I don't know which cap is which. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and I'll add this mint last. So I'll add in 1 tablespoon And then to the other one, I'll add in 2 tablespoons. And then I'll take the rest and put it in a small container for people to sprinkle over the top of their food, which really adds something. And so this is basically, right, you're just going to let this go for a couple more minutes. When you're ready, you bake your potatoes. Probably you need an hour, hour and a half, depending on the size of those potatoes. So you want to make sure that you've got enough time for that, or stick them in a crock pot and go to work. This could be heated again on a stove or in a microwave. So you can make it ahead of time if you need to, which is just wonderful. But it ends up being all that it takes, kind of fast, for something that's going to end up being this really hearty, amazing, healthy, flavorful meal. So thank you so much for being with me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.